so great to meet you. I actually have a Chucky right here. His hair is a little bit crazy, like mine. I've been a fan of Chucky since I was a kid. I think I saw the first one when I was about 10 years old, somewhere in the 2000s. First of all, I just want to know, how does it feel to have created a character that is so timeless and that kind of like all different types of generations are like obsessed with and continue to get scared of?
It is does not suck. It's great. I feel very happy, and the older I get, the more gratitude I feel because of it, because I just know how lucky I am that, it's really for any writer to to write something and people like it and care about it. That's everything. So I just know how lucky I am, and I also know how dependent I am on my colleagues, my fellow writers and directors and the actors and Brad Dourif and the puppeteers. Like it's such a team sport, and I think we all know how lucky we are to be doing this together. So we're enjoying it while we can.
Definitely. And I know of me and everybody wants to know, how did Chucky come about back in the 80s? And also, why did you name him Chucky?
Well, actually, the name Chucky was not mine. But I'll get to that in a second. So the impetus for writing that script was that I grew up. My dad worked in advertising and marketing, so that was a world I was around a lot as a child, and I knew how cynical it was, and I knew that like there was like a specific drive at times to get the children's market to what they called consumer trainees, and I just like as a child, like I would go with my dad to New York City, in Matt Avenue, where he would go on meetings, and it would astonish me that like, wait a minute, they're creating this thing to get kids to lay out exactly $5, even though they don't need it. Um, so I wanted to write a dark satire about that, a dark satire about how marketing and advertising can adversely affect children. And this being the mid 80s, the Cabbage Patch Kid phenomenon was at its peak. And I'm sure you've read about it, but it's hard to believe now. It feels so like almost corny, but that people would be so gaga for these dolls that they would like stand in line for hours and hours and riot at stores because they had run out of them. But that really did happen back in the 80s. So it was kind of that impulse about writing the dark satire about marketing and the Cabbage Patch doll craze that helped create Chucky. But the name Chucky came from David Kirshner, who produced, all the movies and is one of my fellow executive producers on the TV show. Charles Lee Ray was a compendium of actual murderers that scared David as a child. So Charles Manson, Lee Harvey Oswald, and David Earl Ray, the guy who killed Martin Luther King. So those three killers, their names combined make Charles Lee Ray, and hence Chucky. When I wrote the script, the name for the doll was Buddy. And then like they came out with a real doll called Buddy, so obviously we weren't going to use that.
That's so amazing to just know, like, obviously this started before like my time when I was born, and to have like watched the movies as a kid and now an adult to see the TV show. What I do love is that like each season is like different, but you have like a story that continues. So I have to ask, like, I actually put the vote for Chucky sign outside my house, and all my neighbors are like,
Me too.
so weird. I'm like, whatever. But what inspired like the White House setting?
Well, we always, with every new movie or new season of the show, we need to reinvent it in some crucial, interesting way. That's always a goal. And excuse me, for years I've been doing research about ghosts in the White House because there's a lot of mythology about that. Books that have been written about that, and actual occurrences in the White House, including Abraham Lincoln's wife, their we talk about it in episode 1 this season. Their son Willie died of typhoid, and she was obsessed with the occult and held seances in the White House to try to speak to him. Anyway, all of that stuff has always fascinated me, not so much because I'm like so much like a huge believer in ghosts. I myself have never had any kind of supernatural experience, but I love the various aspects of the horror genre, whether they're monsters or haunted houses, the metaphor that they provide. And I find them very powerful and interesting. And I just knew instinctively that putting Chucky and what we know about Chucky into that house and the implications of Chucky being in that house and what that means and what kind of mischief he could get up to in that house just seemed like catnip. And it seems like people have been digging it, so I think we were right.
Oh yeah, it was so fun, and I need more episodes, but I'm gonna have to be patient. So one thing with these characters that are so timeless is, when we see Michael Myers, we see Freddy Krueger, they kind of like, they don't age, but they're always like powerful. And Chucky has, pretty much survived everything and come back, but this time we do see him actually aging and deteriorating, which is like surprising because he's a baby doll. What was the inspo behind that, and are there any like special meanings or themes?
Well, part of it is that you know, I always begin with the characters. It's like with every new movie or new season of the show, it's like what aspect of the characters can we explore that has been different and what would be interesting and new and surprising. And I do think that that's one of the things that sets Chucky apart from other slasher characters of his era, like Freddy and Michael and Jason, is that Chucky has, even though he's a doll, he does have a recognizably human dimension. Over the course of the series, we have found we know a lot about him now, about who he loves and his family and what his values are. All of that stuff we know through Seed of Chucky and whatnot. So I just thought it would be interesting at this stage, and I'm sure it's partly, to some degree autobiographical, but Chucky dealing with getting older and dealing also, and this comes more into play in the back half of the season, when you're staring down your own mortality and wondering, what was it all for? And did I really make a difference? Especially in the presence of pretenders to the throne that Chucky has. He was like the king of the killer doll subgenre for years, and now we've got Annabelle and we've got M3GAN and these people who are challenging him. So I just thought it would be interesting and surprising to give Chucky this existential dilemma that anyone can identify with, because we all have to face those feelings that sometimes the notion of creeping irrelevance and maybe, do I matter anymore? And now that, as he himself says, my superpower is being adorable. How can he do his thing, which inevitably involves hoodwinking dopey innocent kids who think he's just adorable, into toting him around and getting murder weapons. But it's harder to do that when he looks hideous and old. So partly it was just all that I wanted to see, and I wanted to challenge Brad Dourif. We have this amazing Oscar-nominated actor at our disposal. We've got to give him new shit to do, and make it interesting for him as well.
Yeah, like every episode that I've watched, all the movies, like I'm never like bored. I'm always like, oh my God, can this really happen next? Like, why do I have to wait a whole week? So I think I have time for one more. So if Chucky could team up with any horror icon or present day character to either go on a murder spree, who would it be?
Well, I've always wanted Chucky to team up with Freddy. I think that could be really fun, because I think, I love Freddy as well, just as a horror fan. I love the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. And I love the personality and the character of Freddy Krueger. And I think that as opposed to something like Freddy versus Jason, which was very cool in a lot of ways, but because Jason doesn't talk, you don't have as much opportunity to get into a relationship there. Whereas I can totally see what a relationship would be between Freddy and Chucky, and how they might be like wary admirers of each other from afar at first. It's like, oh yeah, I followed your career for years. I'm a great admirer of your technique. I hate kids too. Whatever, whatever it is that they would bond over. But then I think that they're both, narcissists, and they're both egomaniacs. And so it would bring them into conflict with one another. So I think, Freddie and Jason would be hilarious. More recently, M3GAN obviously has become a very popular new kid on the block in a short amount of time. And she's a hilarious personality as well. So I can see Chuck. I don't think that the people behind M3GAN are ready to do that. I think they realize they have probably years and decades worth of stuff to do before they get to the crossover era of their franchise. But I think it could be funny.
Definitely. I mean, I think having Chucky and Freddy, and Chucky killing people in their sleep, that would definitely be something I would love to see.
And Chucky and Freddy meeting in the dream realm, Chucky and Freddy meeting in, because as we've shown in this season of the show, we show Chucky does dream, he sleeps, he dreams. So the idea of Chucky meeting Freddy in his dreams could also
Yeah,
be
like that scene with Andy. I was like, wait, did he dreamed that, right? Because at first I was like, he killed him and then dreamed it. But I was like, no, this was his dream. Because I was like, I felt a sigh of relief. I was like, okay, we need him alive still. But I'm gonna put that in the air because that would be a great collab. I think I have ran out of time, but thank you so much. This was like
Thank you.
a major geek thing for me. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. Nice to meet you.
You too. Have a great day.